it's time for uG-Whear versus Wizard. It's going to be on Lost Temple. Wizard playing under his Smurf name, Power of Cheese Squared, and uG-Whear playing for Team UG at the time. And I'm going to go ahead and load this up. So we have here as the yellow Terran at the 3 o'clock position, uG-Whear. And over here at the 9 o'clock position, we have PoC-Squared, otherwise known as Wizard. So Wizard is a player both myself and my younger brother were very familiar with. We were even in the same clan called United for a while. And practiced together very heavily during the time period leading up to the first WCGC qualifiers. So the WC World Cyber Games Championship held 2000 in Times Square, uG-Whear and I would often practice together for that event, and uG-Whear would end up being one of the Americans to go to the grand finals in Korea for the very first WCG event. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up his info card. Yeah, so again, 5th and 6th place at the WCG 2001 Grand Finals in Korea, having qualified for that by getting, I think it was 3rd place that year in the WCG USA Finals. He was 3rd place at WCG USA 2002, again qualifying to go to the Grand Finals, but didn't quite go as far into the bracket stages as he did during that initial showing, and had an average APM at the time of 137, playing in this particular game with an APM of 140. And it looks like for this game, he's doing a very standard opening. Terran Supply Depot and our barracks. Wizard just starting out with his gateway and likely going to be going for Vespene very soon. So that is uG-Whear, and if you want to see what uG-Whear looked like around this time, uG-Whear is in the center of this picture. This is from the Million Man LAN that would happen 2 months about, or a month and a half about, after this tournament occurred. So after this, so we had this ladder for the CompUSA $20,000 thing, which led to the round of 64. And then after this event happened, CompUSA held another Million Man LAN event, an actual LAN tournament with a decent prize pool in Kentucky. And he's in the center of this picture with McNasty on the left and a player named Hurting Time on the right. So in the game itself, still nothing that exciting, just scouting going on at the moment. uG-Whear finishes his wall off, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Wizard once again. Wizard was 2nd place in WCG USA 2002, which was where uG-Whear got 3rd place and Faraz got in 1st. He was also 5th place at the end of this tournament, earning himself $500 for that placement. And Wizard's APM is 144 average. This particular game playing with 137. You can see, sorry. Wrong click there. So you can see here a picture of the 3 of WCG USA players at the finals. So you have uG-Whear there on the left, Wizard in the center, and Faraz on the right. So going back to the game real quick, we have a dual factory coming out of uG-Whear. One thing which he did love to use is vultures. So I wouldn't be surprised if he built a lot of vultures for his opening salvo here. Compared to any other player, he was the one who was really pioneering vulture-based openings. So whereas Faraz really loved siege tanks during this era, uG-Whear really loved those vultures and would oftentimes use them regardless of what his opponent was doing. Because even if his opponent was going with dragoons, he was confident enough that he can micro his spider mines well enough to destroy anything that a Protoss could throw against them. And indeed, his very first research will be the spider mine. So just Wizard is putting on a little bit of early pressure here, while at the same time trying to use this Dragoon to deny scouting. The main purpose of these two zealots was just to try to see and try to get Whear to tip his hand with units as to what he was going for. And just going for a Protoss Observatory for Wizard at the moment. So another thing to note is that Whear would actually be in the finals of this event, so he's going to be playing for a $10,000 first prize, with second place getting $2,500. So he made it very far into the bracket stage of the CompUSA 20K. And even more than that is that we actually met together yesterday, and he co-casted those finals games with me. So at the end of this event is going to be co-casted games with Whear, who was playing in the CompUSA finals with $10,000 on the line, about what it was like at that period in time and what those games were, how those games kind of went down. I also think I saw somebody ask about a tasteless replay. We did broadcast a tasteless game earlier on, so you'll be able to find that on a YouTube channel. And if you check out that Team Liquid thread, I'll eventually post a link to where those videos are. So if you want to check out a tasteless game that was broadcasted earlier, be sure to look for it there. So going back to the game now, we have pretty standard stuff happening for both sides. Wizard has gone with observers and is getting his Dragoon range, 2 gates for units. Trying to push out with the observer the spider mines that Whear has laid in his front line. Again, vultures being one of Whear's favorite units at the time, and a player that really pushed them forward and how to use them forward. Realizing that no, Dragoons don't always have to counter vultures. Vultures can sometimes counter Dragoons if you use them right. And essentially he looks like he has transitioned from the 2 factory with 2 missile turrets in his main base towards now going for an expansion. Another interesting tidbit about Whear as this game progresses is that TVP is actually one of his better matches because of the fact that he would race switch against other Terrans. So he didn't like the TVT matchup, so against other Terrans who play Protoss. So because of the fact he played tons of PVT games and then a ton of TVP games, he ended up becoming quite the expert on how this matchup actually works during this time period. It was kind of interesting to have a player who really does that and experience the matchup from both sides. So Wizard is going to go ahead and poke his head in, see what he can do. He has a few Dragoons, and this Terran barracks is up, so his Dragoons are going to move forward, and they're into the base, but there are a bunch of siege tanks here to meet them. It doesn't look like Wizard's going to have enough, but he has a shuttle, and he drops some zealots on top of them now. These zealots are going to make great work of these siege tanks. I don't think Whear anticipated that. Otherwise, I think he probably would have entered the barracks. The SCVs are being called into action, having to fight now for their lives in both the mineral line and outside of it. The observer goes down. It looks like the pathing of the zealots is getting mixed up. He's doing a good job of making sure that the zealots don't know what to do. And it looks like these zealots will likely fall. So that attack has been successfully repelled, but there were a lot of SCV losses during it. I think that was more than what Whear anticipated to take. I don't think he quite realized that dropship was going to come in with that secondary movement there. And it also looks like for some reason Whear is now moving out. There's a few SCVs with a single siege tank, another siege tank, and some vultures following up. It looks like he decided that since he won that battle, he wants to push forward. So he's pushing forward now. Siege tanks sieging up. It looks like these Dragoons should be able to take that out. There is some reinforcements coming from behind. But Wizard's going to be able to pull them out before the siege thing's done. The spider mine landed. It's going to move forward. It looks like the siege tank stays are numbered. And Whear's attempt to take the center is going to be denied. Oh, that was a hero spider mine. All of us should try to aspire to be as great as he just was. You'll also notice that uG-Whear has placed spider mines in various expansions throughout the map. He wants to make sure that he knows if the Protoss tries to take another base. As I explained in the Wizard versus Frost game, you generally want to be one base up on the Terran during this time period. Every single Protoss had that goal in mind, to always be at least one up. Because if it was equal bases, generally that would mean you'd lose. Because we didn't know how to use Arbiters, we thought Arbiters and Stasis were kind of a crap ability and a crap unit. So you really needed to be able to just pump out more gateway units than your opponent can deal with, and just have pure numbers on your side to win those engagements. So uG-Whear's up to 4 facts, adding in a Terran starport. Pretty good defense, scouting out with that barracks to make sure that Wizard doesn't try any type of drop shenanigans that he doesn't know about. And things are pretty much stabilizing at the moment. So for those who are joining us and don't know, again, this is the CompUSA $20,000 ladder that was held back in 2002 between February and April. All of us were trying to qualify to make it to the round of 64 bracket that would happen at the end of the ladder and get a shot at the $20,000 prize pool from that tournament that would happen out of those ladder standings. The entire thing was with coordination with Blizzard. If you look at the 1.09 and 1.09b patch notes, they both reference the CompUSA tournament. Essentially were something that most American players, since it was an American-only tournament, were aiming and striving to be a part of. So we have here, we are sending in some vultures. Lost your name there for a second. These vultures are mainly because of the fact that the spider mine was removed. So he's curious to see if Wizard had expanded, and he was sending those vultures in to try to see if he can get up that ramp in order to kill potentially probes that have been sent to expand. Up top, it looks like we have a drop coming in from where? 2 siege tanks and a shuttle. These should be pretty effective. Wizard is not reacting. Oof, there goes some probes. Single file, guys, single file. No! Poor workers. Civilian casualties. These zealots will clean that up. So he has regained his natural again, but where he did do a good deal of damage, and is now actually using his dropship with the tanks, realizing there's no drag units, no anti-air here, to still keep the harassment going. Forced to now finally get away by those things. But wait! There's a drop inside at the same time at Wizard's main. So while that drop at the natural was going on, he flew in a second dropship to attack the main base, which Wizard did not pay attention to, distracted by removing the other drop. So it looks like most of the probes here were destroyed. This will be cleaned up, having done a good deal of damage. So basically, he has completely crippled Wizard's economy from those movements, from that split drop that he just accomplished. Also, as mentioned in the Frost game, you won't be seeing any science vessels. Those were not used at the time during this matchup. So you will see dropships. So basically, it's going to be a very mech-oriented army augmented with dropships for mobility. It's basically the Terran endgame at this point in time. So another lull in the action. We do have basically 3 bases against 3 bases. This is actually really bad position for the Protoss at the moment because, again, at this time you want to be 1 base up, and being equal bases meant you're behind. So Wizards now trying to get that 1 base up at this point in time, trying to get that 3rd expansion going. And it looks like we have a Doom drop. 4 drop ships now, dedicated to taking away his natural expansion. Wizard doesn't quite have the units here to clean this up. So yeah, it looks like this will eventually be cleaned up, but it will have done some damage. It will have distracted Wizard from being able to do other things. And you have a single Vulture here being a hero. 6 kills. 7 kills. And he decides that that's it. He's calling it a day. 7 kills. Lucky 7 for him. Wizard's new base here is not fully saturated. Just a few probes there so far. The battle at the natural Wizard is still ongoing. Siege Tank will not quite make it. So another Doom drop coming in here now that Wizard has successfully moved all of now that uG-Whear has moved all of Wizard's forces up to defending his natural. He's now going for another drop on this new base that he knows existing from just how the game has been going and how that Spider-Man was moved earlier. Wizards doesn't quite have the forces here to be able to fight this back, but it does look like uG-Whear has decided that he has done his job, killed all the probes there. He doesn't need to engage any further. Or maybe he does. He just wanted to reposition and get the spider mines up. So Wizard's forces are starting to trickle in. Going to see if they can save the space that has already lost all of its probes. There will be a few dropship casualties, but 2 of them do look like they're going to survive. Oof! That was a bonus for that spider mine. Unfortunately, going after those dropships meant that the forces were not stopping the siege tanks, so that expansion will fall. And it's looking more and more like the Protoss is being put into a bad position. Like, it's even bases again, which means that the Terran is up. And if you look at supply counts, it looks like it's 130 to 127, so equal supply counts, but again, you want to be higher supply counts, so you need to throw your units against that Terran defensive position, which will be very fortified with tanks and vultures whenever you want to do an attack. It looks like Wizard has decided to try to push forward. Not going to go well for him. Decides he doesn't want to take that fight. Backs away. Some high Protoss Templars which decide that they don't really want to use their energy yet. They don't really want to be part of this fight. You'll notice there is no targeting of the Templars either. We didn't quite have the APM in order to target individual Templars that often at this time period. But they will use their energy to kill some SCVs, some juicy miners, to ensure that uG-Whear's economy gets a little bit weaker. I also think it's worth noting that the minerals flotation that's occurring here, uG-Whear currently has 2,700 minerals, while Wizard has 2,300. So both of them floating over 2k minerals that could be used toward units, just simply because of the fact that their macro is already being pushed to the limit just for the amount of bases they have. So, lull in the gameplay again. Wizard is trying to establish the space that has just been killed. Adding in some Protoss Stargates. So I mentioned this in the Frost game, but the number one, these aren't going to be Stargates for Arbiters. You didn't go for Arbiters. The number one comeback mechanic that Protoss used at this time period, and especially my brother was prone to do, is if they felt like they were getting behind, was to do a tech switch to carriers. Because siege tanks can't attack carriers, so obviously that must be the thing to do when you're starting to lose the siege tanks. So it looks like Wizard will successfully break through here. Indeed he will, just barely breaking through Where's line. There is a lot of forces to siege to the south, but Where doesn't want to necessarily move them. He just wants to reinforce and retake the ground that he's lost in this section of the map up north of that natural defense line. So it looks like he's regained control of the middle, so the game will continue from this point. Wizard has not started building his carrier yet. Does he have a fleet beacon going somewhere? Is the fleet beacon over here? Yeah, that's the third Stargate. There's the fleet beacon. So again, gonna go for that carrier switch. And he's also taking the natural here, trying to catch back up on bases. He knows that Where has taken this side of the map, Where has kind of developed an empire, and Wizard's starting to really feel behind at this point. Still, both players are floating minerals, so Where is floating 2,500, Wizard's floating about 1,500. Their macro not always the best at every single point in time. And Where was looking for a drop decided against it, because there was no actual mining expansion here yet. I think he was probably expecting to find one. So he'd rather wait until it's completed before actually doing his Doom Drop of Death. Population-wise, Wizard's at 95, Where's at 150, so definitely the ball's in his court. I'm not even sure if he's seen this expansion yet. He may just be checking for probes, and every time he sees there's no probes there, he just decides that it's not worth dropping. So basically, all in the action, I'm going to go ahead and put up their info again. This was Where's, again, accomplishments. It looks like he is staging up this this ledge, now that there is actually something here to siege. And this expansion does not look like it's long for this world for Wizard. And there's Wizard's info for anybody who might have just joined the stream. So Wizard being the PoC player and Where being the Terran player, both playing in the CompUSA $20,000 tournament, where there was a ladder period that I'm showing off right now, trying to qualify for the top 64 bracket. So it looks like Wizard's going for the center here. He realizes he's behind on bases. He's going to try to attack with his ground army, try to do as much damage as possible. See if he can't do something while all these forces are spread on the ledge. Just running beyond it, realizing that he wants to take out some of the Goliaths right now. Because remember, I mentioned before, he's doing this carrier switch. So he's trying to build up a carrier army to go ahead and catch Where off guard. But as you can see, Where has already started to switch the Goliaths, likely having already scanned the space and seeing those Stargates. I'm blending this as +1 air weapons, which is very important in order to be able to effectively take things out, because carriers have basically 8 attacks. They have 8 interceptors in them. So if you get +1 air weapons, you're giving each of those interceptors +1 attack, or plus whatever attack is the default for the weapon upgrade. But the siege tank has basically 2 attack upgrades, no armor, which is good for Wizard right now, as he wants to make sure that his carriers have more attack and he's able to get through the armor of those Goliaths and those siege tanks. And not much else happening. I'm thinking that there's going to be a conflict very soon, though. These carriers are built to be used. Wizard is behind on bases. You can see the massive yellow, so it's 105 to 182. in terms of supply. Where is even taking the island expansion now, which Wizard was hoping to take, and has a nasty surprise that it's already been inhabited. They don't need you there anymore, Probe. And here comes some of the initial attack with the carriers. It's going to first clear off this ledge, allowing this expansion to be retaken again should he choose to do so. And is basically going to rely on these carriers, whose goal is going to be to kill any Goliaths that he sees, and then hopefully all that will be left for siege tanks, since the siege tanks can attack air, the carriers can finish off the siege tanks. That would be the general idea, at least. And at this point in time, this would actually sometimes work, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. So this initial conflict, it looks like it's not going so well for Wizard. There are a lot of Goliaths. I mean a lot of Goliaths here. Looks like we're down to about 5 carriers. 4 carriers. Ugh, GG. So that was, again, Whear versus Wizard. Both top American players at the time then. And Whear would be in the finals of this. And if you want to tune in to hear his thoughts about the CompUSA Gamefixx and hear him co-broadcast his games, be sure to do that in about, I'd say about another hour that should be going. In terms of macro and micro abilities, again, so Fordos didn't use Arbiters, Terrans didn't use EMP. The microing of the carriers there was actually considered good for the time. We just didn't know all the different micro tricks in order to win various different battles. And we just didn't have quite as good unit micro that you'd find today.